Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another VITA Learning webinar. Today, we're going to have Mr. Mark Wagenseal. He's a denturist from Canada, and he is going to go through step by step kind of what he does as far as preparing and then starting to set up the teeth for your dentures. Mark himself has worked as a denturist for many years, has his own practice, and he also uses the digital technology as well. So you can often see Mark speaking on either traditional and or digital dentistry as far as dentures go. So today is going to be about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. During that time, you're going to be on mute. However, if you have a question on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see in the box, you should see a little field that says questions. You're more than welcome to type in your questions and send it to us. And then if it's something that Mark can answer at that specific moment, I'll interrupt and kind of throw it to him. Otherwise, at the end of the program, we will also have a Q&A. A discussion with any of your questions. So with that said, this recording or this webinar will be recorded. Afterwards, it gives us a couple days, but afterwards you'll be able to view it again online, whether at Facebook or VITA YouTube channel and so forth. You can also learn about other subject matter, such as a VITA, the Ionic Vigo, which is the digital denture segment, and then other information about our VITA teeth as well. So if you're going to be working on a case, this is kind of set up so that you have an opportunity, if you have a case in your lab and you want to bring it in front of you along with the teeth that you've selected for that specific case, you can certainly follow Mark as he sets up, and you can kind of go through it hands-on along with Mark so that you kind of get an idea of his flow, his workflow, how he arranges teeth, how he prepares to set the teeth, how he does treatment planning, and so forth. So please get that ready, get that in front of you. And then we are going to go ahead and start this workshop. So I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Mark Wagenseal. And Mark, you are now in control. And so whatever your screen is, it will pop up here and we are good. There you are. Good to have you with us, Mark.
Woohoo! Woot woot! Good morning from Edmonton, Canada, where it's currently minus, let's see, it's about 30 degrees below freezing, and with the wind chill, 40 degrees below freezing, so it's cold. First off, thanks for coming. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for investing in yourself. Thanks for investing in your patients that trust you, whether you're a technician or a denturist. Somebody's at the end of the line trusting the procedures and what happens. Thanks to VITA North America for their support and their support of supporting our professions and our strive to be better. So thanks for making time in your day. First off, we do not slap teeth together. Woot woot. No, we do not slap teeth together. We are building a product, a denture that functions inside the mouth. It has to look good. It has to function. I'm 51 years old, and it's now 34 years of my life building dentures for patients. As a denturist and a dental technician, it's been nice to work both sides of the benches here in Alberta, and I'm very fortunate for that. And what I've learned along the way is it was really funny during the first part of my career. I would build a denture. I did everything right. My bite was right. Everything looked good, and the patient's coming back and they still say it doesn't fit right, or the biggest one, I can't chew. If I had $1 for every time someone told me at the beginning part of my career, even with new teeth, I can't eat. And the other best one was, how come my old teeth fit better than my new teeth? Anyway, so we've been through it all. and now, after banging my head on the wall for a long time, I started to learn a few things along the way. And that's what I want to share with you today. So whether you're a current VITA user, whether you're new to this, I want to review how VITA teeth work, how lingual-form posterior teeth work, how to set them up. We're going to enjoy our journey together. I want to impart on you along the way some of my journey and some of what I've learned, and impart that on you. One of the most poignant things is adjustment rates. So an adjustment rate is how many times that patient is expected back in your office when you insert a denture. Globally, it's 2 to 5 times. So an upper and lower complete denture typically comes back 2 to 5 times. Now, within a global pandemic, we have a little bit more work to do, which means I need time to do proper paperwork, proper questionnaires, proper paperwork in terms of the pre-screening and screening with the patient. Here in Alberta, we have to do a pre-treatment oral rinse. So we have the extra cost of these things as well, these extra steps for my staff to do, for Lenore to do with the patient. Of course, we walk in looking like I'm the Blue Men Group with a face shield and mask and tearaway gown and everything like this, so that we can stick our fingers inside someone's mouth and still live our lives. But that adds time. So generally speaking, it's added about 10 to 15 minutes based on surveys that we've done with practitioners. So you can see less patients a day. So now it becomes an efficiency issue. So the less a patient comes back to your office, the more efficient you are, the more profitable you are, and the fact that the denture fits. So this is important. You have to keep in mind that I have a billing rate. I charge out so many dollars an hour. It costs so many dollars an hour to run a practice. And the more you know about that, the more you realize that for every adjustment you do, you're not getting paid for that. It costs money. It takes time away from your day when that's already precious. Now, for those of us, again, treating patients one-on-one, we can see less people a day. And from what I've spoken with my dentist colleagues and with other denturists, it's exhausting. I mean, you have to appreciate, we have to kind of see it as every patient has COVID, and that we have to be really extra diligent every minute of every day. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting wearing that PPE to that extent now, and it's tiring. At the end of the day, we're feeling that, and it's hard. So what can we do? Well, we want to bring that adjustment rate down. We want to bring it down from 2 to 5 to 0 to 1, and that's where this whole hour and a half is going to lay out for you about VITA teeth. So we're going to kind of get into the process of treatment planning, and I want to review with you just some of the big things about what I've learned. Number one, you have to build teeth to the patient, not the other way around. And that was a direct quote from Dr. Carlson in the US. What a poignant quote, which means look at the person that you're building the teeth for. And then when you make treatment decisions, is that the right decision for that patient? Because at the end of the day, the government of Alberta trusts me to make decisions for the health and dental welfare of that patient. And then I can at least substantiate those decisions that I made to say to a peer review, that's why I did this. So what am I getting at? Don't open the vertical, just open the vertical. Why are you opening the vertical? What's the consequences of opening the vertical? What's the consequences of giving someone new dentures and a new fit? These are things that you can also now add in your treatment planning to also say, is that the right decision? So what are we taught? Well, right away, we're taught you should have 1 to 3 millimeters of freeway space for a patient. It's an arbitrary number, but that's an average of every person has 1 to 3. What we tend to forget is that we build a denture for a senior citizen. So right now, polling the people that are online, knowing you and what your life and your journey, do senior citizens adapt well to change? Most are probably going no. So this is funny. Everywhere I lecture, I ask the same question. Do senior citizens adapt well to change? And most people are like, wow. Well, then why are you changing their dentures? Why are you opening their vertical? Why are you doing these things? Well, because we're taught that way, and the textbook told me to do that, Mark. Now we have to understand the consequences of that. So now look at the person, understand. So the first thing I look at is their hand, and I see, do they have arthritis? Is their skin thin? Can I see through it? Are they bruising? If they're pocked full of bruise marks, guess what? That means they're bruising easy. Well, if you're bruising easy here, are you going to bruise easy in your mouth? Probably. So you get a feel for things. When you open the vertical, you're putting more load down. Now you have to manage that load because the masseter muscles are stronger. The other thing that I've learned is adaptability. So when a patient comes in and let's say, for example, they're having trouble with their dentures that you just built them and you're frustrated as well. You have to take a step back and look, okay, what did I miss here? Part of that too is looking at the patient. I had a fella come in with a bag full of dentures and he said to me, Mark, a bag full of teeth. Okay, I started to look at the fella. I looked at his hands while I was talking to him and arthritis and marks. And I said to him, do you find that you're quite sensitive to things? And we started to chat on that topic. Do you know that this fella could feel a crumb in his bed? He actually is so sensitive that he vacuums his bed out every night before he goes to sleep. And his wife's in the treatment room and she's going. I said to him, if you can feel a crumb in your bed, you wonder why you're having trouble wearing a denture. But the thing is, now that we can highlight that there's this uber sensitivity, how are you going to manage it? So now you have to start to manage and think, well, how's this going to operate within that person and how do I make it fit for them? Other point I want to bring up now is we have a chew cycle. So when people say to me, yeah, Mark, my bite's right, understand that it's not just an articulator that opens and closes like this and we check centric like this. You have to keep in mind that you come together and you bite and you chew in a teardrop. And then that teardrop is unique to every person. It's like your thumbprint. It's unique. Some have a more horizontal, some have a more vertical bite cycle. Now you have to look and identify that because that's going to tell you how the teeth are going to work in the mouth so that you can adjust them on the articulator. So that's what we're going to get into as we start setting the teeth. You want to check the bite cycle of the person because then you want to have things that and have the teeth function within that bite cycle. Not so it's just perfect on an articulator. And now we have to use product that we can manipulate. So VITA posterior teeth, so lingual-form teeth, are made from acrylic glass. So they're an acrylic glass mix. What's nice about them is I can grind them and alter them, but I don't have to polish them after. On typical IPN or acrylic denture teeth, you have to polish afterwards or it'll maintain rough and then it wears out quicker. Whereas on acrylic glass, I don't have to do that. So that's the lingual-form teeth. That's what we're going to be using today. So it's nice because I don't have to polish afterwards. So I can alter and change things of the tooth as necessary. The other thing that I've learned, so now matching to the bite cycle of a person and not just making it work on an articulator, is the bite cycle, altering the teeth to the bite cycle. So one of the most popular denture teeth in North America is Dentsply. It's 20 degree, born and raised on it. Okay, when you look at 20 degree teeth, okay, they mesh together. They're quite knuckle tight when you set them up, so there's very little gapping. You're going to notice that there's gapping with lingual-form. So the teeth are quite tight together. And as I'll hold that up to the camera, okay, they're quite tight together, function together. Okay, there's not a big defining cusp. So on the molars, the lingual cusp is the cusp that tips down a little bit and you can see. What you're going to notice about the lingual-form teeth is that there's more of a discerning cusp. So 20 degree teeth are milling teeth, which means they touch together and they touch from buccal to lingual and from mesial to distal. There's contact through the tooth. And you have to grind together like this to mill. So it's like a mill, like you mill flour. And what you're going to notice about lingual-form is it's more mortal and pestle. So you have a lower fossa and the cusp comes into the fossa more like a mortal and pestle approach. It's a different chew cycle. So and a different bite principle. It's more efficient. And then it's not going to tip the denture as much because you don't have to mill it, because when you mill it, you're putting a lot of horizontal draw. When it's mortal and pestle and coming through, there's not as much horizontal draw and the denture is not going to tip as much. Remember, the denture adhesive industry in the US alone is over $100 million a year industry. So a lot of people are wearing glue and they swallow it. That's not healthy for you. And I'm living proof now that we can get people out of soft liners and we can get them out of adhesives. And that is from now setting teeth to the bite cycle, altering things, and setting aside a little bit about what we were originally taught in school, and that we can, yes, it was our base, but now we can build on it. So the first thing that we're going to do, and I'm going to flip the camera around, is we are going to now start model analysis. Now you're going to have to do model analysis for digital dentures as well. So any digital program is going to use what I'm about to show you, because what model analysis it does is it's using anatomical landmarks of a person's mouth to identify where the teeth go. And this is bang on correct. So typically we do some model analysis, but now I want to go in depth. So this is how we're going to start the case. Okay, first thing you do is you circle your incisive papilla, and then you draw a line vertically and a line horizontally. This vertical line is the true center or midline of the patient. The horizontal line now is a line and reference that we use when you set the incisal edge of the upper. It's 7 to 9 millimeters. So the incisal edge will rest at the 7 to 9 millimeter mark. Now, with that said, okay, so I'm going to just lift this up so you do the 7 to 9 millimeter mark. Now, 7 to 9 millimeters. So typically the 7 millimeter mark will put the incisal edge on or slightly behind the wet and dry line of the lower lip. If you go 9 millimeters, you're ahead of the wet and dry line of the lower lip slightly. Now, you say, well, it's going to make it bucky. No. Why would I want to go 9 millimeters? Well, as we get older, our muscles fatigue and sag a little bit. So typically what we do is we throw and make a thicker denture base and throw more wax on, and we puff out the flanges of the denture. Well, what you can do now, so that you don't have a super and over thick flange, so it looks like you have a wad of bubble gum shoved up under your lip, you actually can move the teeth forward slightly, so you're just exceeding or you're just ahead of the wet and dry line of the lip, and you're using the teeth to push the lip out, so you don't need as much wax to support it. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to find our long branch rugae, and our long branch rugae is typically the rugae that is behind, okay, the incisive papilla. So on this model that I'm showing you, you can see the little curvatures of the rugae there. It's showing up nice on the screen. So typically, we're going to come through and we're going to circle the long branch rugae, and it typically points, and that one is right here. So typically, right at the end here, you're going to draw a dot, and typically that dot then is where the cuspid goes. So that's where the cuspid and the center of the cuspid is. So what you'll find is the long branch rugae has like a little bit of a curvature to it. So you'll see as I highlighted, it's got like a little S curve to it. And that S curve then, at the end of that S curve, okay, and here it starts and it comes up. This one's a little bit different. As I over highlight, and then that dot is the center of the cuspid. It's a nice reference point. Then when you set, and you're going to set, say, on a either a wax base or a light cure base or something of that nature, you want to cut this out and cut this out so that the technician or yourself can see where these points are. So you want to see this point, so the 7 to 9 millimeter center line, and this rugae, so you can identify that your cuspid is at that line. Then that's where that cuspid goes for that patient. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to circle the tuberosities. And sometimes they're really nice, and sometimes you can barely see them. Okay. All right. And now we're going to take our ruler. Now we're going to take our ruler, shameful advertising, and we're going to go from this point, so the point of our cuspid, to the outside border of the tuberosity, and we're going to draw a line on the edge of the model right there. And we're going to start here again to the point of the cuspid. We're going to come to the inside part of the tuberosity, and we're going to draw a line on the end of the model, and then we're going to extend that down the posterior end of the model like that. Okay. Other side, same thing. Cuspid, inside, line, cuspid, outside, line. Okay, and then that is here. So what this is this span right here, according to Professor Gerber, this is the functional zone limit of this side of this arch. So there's a imaginary triangle here. So I just drew an imaginary triangle using those dots and those reference points. So the cuspid dot and then the outside inside of the tuberosity. And that gets us a triangle. So that's the functional zone limit, which means that tooth can point load anywhere within this, and the bone underneath it should be able to handle that load. So what we're doing is we're finding the bone, not what the ridge looks like, not what the flesh looks like. We're trying to find the bone mass, and that's what we do. Now we're going to switch to the bottom, okay? And we're going to do the same thing. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to circle our retromolar pads, and sometimes they're great to find, and sometimes they're not so great to find. Here's your tip. Try to have the patient leave the denture out a minimum of 1 hour prior to impression taking. Why 1 hour? Even if it's 30 minutes, I'll take what I can get. What's nice now is they can come in with a mask on so that they don't have to worry about looking funny. What you want to do is you want to release the pressure on the gum. When the denture is on the gum, it's loading the gum and it's compressing it and it's squishing it. When it does that, it restricts blood flow. When you take your denture out, then blood flow is able to increase into the gum areas, and it actually helps puff it up so that you can see the intricate details. When you take a denture out and take an impression over top of the ridge immediately, you are taking it on compressed tissue because that denture compressed it. When you have them leave it out, it allows things to rehydrate, so to speak, and puff back up because now blood flow is able to move and flow better. Okay, so that's important. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to find our buccal frenum. So if you look on my model, really hard to see. So typically that can happen. So how you find it is you can see how the ridge is flowing and then it starts to turn and transition to the posterior part. And right on that, you can gently see that's where the frenum will be. So it's just as it starts to go and now transition, that's where this dot goes. And that's the first bicuspid, okay? And you can start to gently see. And what I always suggest is that you take the model and you do this to it. And you start to look at it. Because what happens is when you do this to the model, when you're sitting at your workbench, is you'll be able to see little nuances and you can probably see those frenum pop out then. So it works a little easier for you. So that's where the first bicuspids go. And now, according to Professor Gerber, what we're going to do is we are now going to take from the dot, we're going to go to the outside of the retromolar pad and draw a line, and we're going to go to the inside of the retromolar pad and draw a line. Okay, for both sides. Now, depending on the software for digital, it's going to be quite similar, okay? Some of the digital asks you to find the center of the pad, so it asks some different depending on the software and how the software developer and the software writers wrote it, but they are following this type of model analysis. It is based on Gerber, okay? So now what have I done is I have these models and the lines coming down the posterior end of the model. Okay, so it's going to look like that. Okay, so what did that do? Again, drew me a triangle. And this is the functional zone limit of this arch according to Gerber. Now, when we go to school, we're taught that we should set the teeth over the crest of the lower ridge, or you fail. So I've had it in school where they go and they take their little knife, and that tooth better be over the crest of that ridge, or it's an automatic fail. What have I learned now? Actually, you don't have to do that. What did I say? I said you don't have to set the teeth over the crest of the lower ridge. You actually are working within that zone limit. And now I have a little bit, because what we're focusing on here is what the ridge looks like. I don't care what the ridge looks like, so to speak. I care about the bone underneath. And what model analysis does, and what Gerber found, was that we're trying to find the bone mass underneath what this looks like, and where that is best suited to help for the stability of the denture. So it's a little bit different thinking. Yes, it's controversial because now I am actively disagreeing slightly with what we're taught in schools, that we do not need to set over the crest. You are within this zone limit. And that's been very effective, because now with linguiform teeth, it's more of a point load tooth, as you'll see as we move forward. And now I'm able to actually take that tooth and move it a little bit. The advantages are I'm not stuck just to where the crest of the ridge is. I actually have a little bit of room to move, so that if I have a larger tongue, so a macroglossia tongue, I actually can move off that ridge a little bit and still be okay, because I'm within functional zone limits. Or if I want to push the cheek out more, or they need more support, I can take the teeth and I can hedge it a little bit and move. I'm not just strictly stuck to it better be over the ridge mark. I have some flexibility then. And that's what I like, because I'm building it to the person. So what happens now is that I have these marks on the back end of the models. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, I'll draw it out for you. Okay, so what that means now, and if I just quickly show you on an articulator, you can see that I've got the models here with these lines now articulated. So that's the functional zone limit for the upper and the functional zone limit for the lower. How do I blend both? So one of my main issues with teaching to set teeth over top of the lower ridge is that then that automatically dictates where the upper goes, and the lower then dictates the upper. It shouldn't be that way. Okay, they have to work in unison. The lower shouldn't dictate the upper. So how do I then blend both marks? Well, if I draw the upper, so here's the upper, and then remember I have my marks here, my lines. And now I have the lower, and it looks like this. Remember, I have my lines. So much like I just showed you. Now we're going to blend them. So what we do is we can take our ruler, okay? And if I bring the ruler here, you can see I can set teeth to this line limit here, but it's exceeded the upper. It's okay for the bottom. It's certainly not okay for the top. So what I do is I come over to this line and I extend it down. And then what that does is that, again, I extend that down, so I'll change colors. And that's my stop line, right? Even though it was okay to go here, I'm going to stop because it's not okay for the upper. Now I can go here to the lower, see? But oh look, I can go all the way out here on the upper. So that means my functional zone limit is out here. It's too much for the lower. So what am I going to do is I'm going to take the lower and I'm going to bring it up. And then it creates this zone. And that zone is the neutral zone. And that zone is then where I can set teeth in relation to the upper and lower. So I'm not just setting over the ridge. No, I'm actually taking both arches and I'm blending them together to find the ideal position for the posterior teeth so that they work well within the zone limits for the upper and lower. How cool is that? So I can take this and now I blend the lines so I find the zone limit to function here within the upper and lower. And that's where then I would set the teeth within this limit. Now, what do I mean by that is anything of load. So where the tooth is loaded can fall within that blended line limit. So remember, circling back to linguiform teeth, you have a lower and it's shaped like a bowl. You have an upper that looks like this. That is more of the pestle. So mortal and pestle, and it's hammering in. So now I can set this bowl anywhere over that neutral zone that I just drew on the models, and I can set this anywhere within that. So again, that gives me the benefit, because now I said, if you have someone with a larger tongue and I set it here and it's still too big, then what do we end up doing is we grind half the tooth away and we carve out all the denture base, and you're grinding it all away to make room after it's been inserted when the patient's complaining that they don't have enough room for their tongue. So I'm trying to catch it on the front end. I see that they have a larger tongue. Then I can hedge my bets and move things over a little bit so I'm not having to alter it afterwards. I'm catching it on the front end. And this is why this is advantageous. But again, you have to let go a little bit and get out of your own way, because this is a lot different than what we're taught in school and what a lot of us have been doing for most of our careers. My wife said it right. My wife, Robin, she said, Mark, get out of your way. And I'm telling you, it's hard to do. You have to, again, it's not about me. This is about the patient. And I have to mold myself to them. And that's how I see this. This is me just molding myself to that person and what I think they need. So we do that for both sides. And then that gets us to this point then that I want to set the teeth within that zone limit. Okay? So that's model analysis. Now what you're going to find, again, depending on the software that you use, you'll find a variation of that. Again, depending on how the software people wrote it. Remember, the dental industry came to software, and they gave a guy in a back room and gave him a pizza and said, here, write this software, and oh, by the way, this is model analysis. Well, the software writer has no understanding of what model analysis is, but they take it and they, okay, well, how am I going to write the software and make it work for software? So that's why, again, you look for, they're finding points for you, but that's all based on what I'm showing you now. It's all based from Gerber. And that's why, again, when you go digitally, you're going to have to do some kind of model analysis, and it matters, and how accurate you are matters, because depending on where you put those dots, that's where the software decides where to put the teeth. So this matters. It matters how accurate you are when you do this digitally. You have to spend the time and make sure it's accurate, please, because that's how the software tells where to set the teeth. Whereas conventionally, I'm looking at it and I manually go in and set things. Okay, so going to flip out the page. All right, now we're going to set some teeth. So that means I get to get my fingers dirty. So all right. So what I didn't want to do was make a wax rim or a base plate. This is how we're going to set it today, so you can see things a little easier on a camera. Is I'm going to make these little balls of wax and then set teeth to that. Okay, so that's how we're gonna follow through with this. Okay, now I want to remind you of something. Okay, when a patient comes in with their old existing denture, you see this surface, that's the tissue surface, the basal surface of the denture. It's generally, by this point, shiny and smooth for the patient. And then you come in and you do a, for example, light cure denture base. This is rough. It's not smooth like their denture. It's a rougher texture. So now I want you to think like a senior citizen. You have someone that's there that's used, and the tissue and their central nervous system is used to a smoother surface. And now you've put in a surface that has texture to it, It's a different kind of sensation and a fit. So what did you just do to the central nervous system? Well, you're confusing it a little bit. So I've gotten out of these types of bases and I've actually gone to a really, really hardened wax so that it's smooth. So that when I do and make a rim, it's actually smooth and I polish it, buff it, smooth like the denture base that the patient is used to. Because remember, what did we say about patients and seniors? They don't handle change very well. So now I'm thinking like this because again, at now year 34 of my beautiful professional career, I have great respect for the central nervous system and how it operates, but as we age, how it operates. So now a patient is used to a smooth base. You have to give them a smooth base when you take a bite registration or a wax rim or whatnot. You want to keep it smooth, not rough, because then you're not adding a level of what the heck just happened here. And the central nervous system doesn't understand what happened. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our anterior teeth. So tip, take your knife, come under the neck and pull up. Or you can come this way on the incisal edge and pull up. So use your knife. These things are stuck down really, 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 really hard. And a lot of people laugh. They go, Mark, how come they're so aggressively stuck down? You guys, these things are made in Germany and they're shipped globally with temperature changes from shipping. This wax has to endure temperature changes, so this doesn't move. That's why they're stuck down so much. So you can gently take your blade, pop up, really easy to get them off. Okay. So you're going to set your upper central. Now, again, we're going to follow the 7 to 9 millimeter rule. So from the, now this is where I say you want to expose this so you can see it. So if you are doing a full-on base at once, just cut that out. So cut the incisive papilla out so then I can get my ruler in there and I can do my 7 to 9 millimeter thing. Okay. So that's important. So you can see where you are. Okay. And then it's to the incisal edge. So I'm just going to mark the incisal edge with a little dot. And then you can see from there. Okay. And now we're going 7 to 9 millimeters. Okay, ish, depending on the case and where I want to go for that person. But again, I've explained to you now some of the nuances of that 7 to 9 millimeters and what it achieves for us. And again, typically, if you have no starting point, you're going to go 22 millimeters down to the incisal edge-ish for that patient, okay, based on whether you've planed the rim or not, or what information you have. But again, our standard starting numbers are 22 millimeters from the depth of the sulcus for the length of the upper centrals, and that's 7 to 9 millimeters to the incisal edge. So that's where we're going to go for setting purposes, okay? All right. So now we'll continue on and we'll set the rest of our teeth. And the other thing that I've learned, and I'll certainly try to do today, is the less wax, the better. The less than thermodynamics you have and shrinkage of the wax after, okay? So it's also a little cleaner. Now, regarding VITA, so these are, again, acrylic glass. These are the VITA Excel, okay, teeth, and that we're going to use in conjunction with the linguiform posteriors. So a couple quick things about the VITA Excel. They're more opaque so that if you have to grind them, especially over a metal bar or an implant, to help retain the color better. Because again, especially up in here, that's typically where we're grinding things to make things fit over implant structures. The teeth are also a little broader here at the neck, okay? So they beefed it out a little bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they did that so that, again, it helps hide the wax and the incisive and the papilla pardon me, the interdental papilla. So we want to have less interdental papilla. So you'll see it has a longer emergence profile, which means that the tooth contact's longer here. So there's more tooth to tooth contact, less papilla, which is nice. Because how many times have we seen it in our career? You put the wax denture in and the patient goes to the mirror and they do this and they go, I see wax, I see pink. Drives you nuts. All right, so that's one of the things where now we can go in and have less papilla and it makes us less crazy. So that's the nice thing about this, okay? So again, we have a wider neck on the Excel, we have more opaquing in color, and we also have a thicker incisal ledge. So this was CAD-CAM designed. So this is, again, a little thicker incisal ledge because, again, what we see is the incisal ledge chipping on denture teeth, especially over implants. I want to be clear, it is not the manufacturer's fault when teeth chip. What was that, Mark? It is not the manufacturer's fault. It's my fault. Now, not for everybody out there, but I set the teeth. I set them wrong. I didn't set them within that patient's chew cycle. So that's why these things are breaking. And that's why, again, I will show you that as we move forward. Okay, so it has a little bit of a thicker incisal edge. So that's the beauty of Excel. Again, underneath, flip, and the tooth comes up. Okay, so the next tooth we're going to set is the lateral. My goal is I would like you to use the teeth. It's a transition, especially if you're used to Dentsply teeth and have been using Dentsply teeth for a majority of your career, because that's how you were taught on. Change is difficult, and change is always can be seen as a threat. And it's difficult for change. Certainly the last year has taught us that. It's difficult. But why do you make the change, and what's the value? Well, the change for the teeth here, the value is you're going to acrylic glass. So number one is it looks good. It's more aesthetic. And now we're going to cut our adjustment rate down. And that's going to make our professional lives much happier and less stressful. And then the patient's going to be happier because these teeth cut, they chew. And now that patient can chew better. Now, typically you want to set your cuspid fairly straight. Okay, so typically fairly straight. It's kind of funny when I go to Australia, they really like to tip them like this. So they put quite an angulation on them. So it's just different. It's not right or wrong. Okay, you just have to watch though, because when you tip things, you also then are changing the relationship here. So you just got to watch that a little bit, okay? So typically I'd like to come in and I like to go a little bit straighter in there, okay? So again, look like this. All right, and we're gonna flip to the other side. So you can see that I'm just setting this with it not on the articulator. Again, you can set on the articulator or off, whatever you do. I don't want to change fully your setup practices. You can mold these teeth to however you set teeth now. So I'm going to let that sink in as we move forward. These teeth are adaptable. They're adaptable to you, a practitioner, as they are adaptable to the patient. Okay, in, flip. Okay, so we have our teeth set, our 6 anterior teeth. Now, if you go and you look for the long branch rugae, so again, the long branch rugae coming in here, it's going to point to the cuspid, and the long branch rugae points to the cuspid. And that's the beauty of model analysis, is that I'm able to, okay, see there's my dot, and the tooth goes in and it's over the dot, plus or minus 1 millimeter. So that tells you that you're in the right spot skeletally for that patient. So that's the beauty of this, okay? So that's what helps you know that you're in the right location, okay? And then from there, you can always adjust as you see fit. Why would you adjust? You would adjust for, again, if you or the dentist wants more lip support for the patient, at least you have a starting point of where the patient is skeletally, and it's a reference point. So as I said, you have that plus or minus 2 millimeter from that, or plus or minus a millimeter from that center dot. So I have a little bit of flexibility of where I can set this from that center dot. And that's the beauty of it, as I know. And then I'm still following within the functional skeletal system of the patient. And that's what's really important. Okay, so the next little piece size bit of wax comes here. So I am showing you today how I set the teeth every day conventionally. So now we're going to switch to lingo form. Okay. So now we're going to set the first bicuspid. So here's a couple tips. Okay. All right. Now you're going to see that we have a little triangle forming right here. Okay. That's what I want to see. I want to see that triangle. If I'm down like this, it's too much, because you can see now there's a step created here. I don't want that. You want both from the distal of the cuspid flows into the mesial of the first premolar, and then that automatically sets the height for me. Okay, that's important. So I'm going to highlight that. So again, you're looking for this triangle like there, that triangle. Okay, you shouldn't see a step there. That should be a nice flowing triangle. Then you know that your tooth is set at the right height. Okay, we're going to do that for both sides. So as I show you today is how I have learned to set these teeth. It's kind of, I guess, my way. Like Frank Sinatra said. Again, no step. You set the teeth now in the lab. You can set them how you're setting them now. I'm only going to guide us through today so you see the main points. And then if you set all the uppers first, set all the uppers first. But at least now you're going to learn what to look for. So bear with me as we set this up, okay? So now I'm going to switch to the bottom. So I'm going to increase our field of view a little bit. I'm going to bring our articulator in. Okay. So bear with me. Okay. Now I'm going to start to set the lowers. Whoop. All right then. Now I'm going to start to set the lowers. Look, I didn't break anything. Okay. So now going to heat up some wax. And again, we're going to set the lower first bicuspid. Okay. So again, I have a fairly good size wax. I'm going to check. Okay. Okay. Now we have our lower teeth. So what I've done is I have ordered a A1 on the upper and an A3 on the lower, so that there's a little bit of a better color discrepancy so you can see this a little bit. So I just changed the colors because again, we're doing this now all virtually. Okay, so now we're gonna go in and we're gonna set that in. Okay, now a couple of nuances with this. Okay, so this is a little different than what you've learned. Okay, with dense supply. All right. So there's a space there. So from the distal of the upper canine to the mesial of the lower first premolar, there's a gap there. Okay. Now, for all of you that are dense supply users, you typically want to see this, where it's a closed space. For these teeth, you don't want that. You want to bring it back so you see a slight gap. What that does is that is going to put the distal, the buccal cusp of the lower that I highlighted in red into the mesial fossa of the upper, right there. So remember I said these are mortal and pestle point load. Okay, so the buccal of the lower goes into the mesial of the upper. So I'm gonna leave that out of contact a little bit, and now I'm gonna close that back up into contact. Okay, there you go. So you can see less black mark. And then there's a gap here. Okay, so one of the biggest errors that you can run into is not having that gap with VITA teeth. You want to have that gap, and that's for MFT as well, and lingoform. Okay, so MFT, lingoform, physiodens will all follow this principle. These are newer teeth. Newer meaning these were all designed within the last 10 to 15 years. It's new trend. Lingoform as well is new trending, and XL anterior teeth are new trending. Teeth like cuspiform from VITA and dense supply 20-degree teeth are all from the mindset of 1940, 1950 trends. I'd just like to say it's not 1950 anymore. We're trending differently in dentistry. Look at digital. We're not putting 20-degree teeth. We're not using, the dental companies are using all of their premier products in digital. And these are the new, whoa, I'm upside down. These are the new trends. Well, let's try that again. There we go. These are the new trends. And so we're trending away from the thoughts and the processes. It's not 1940 anymore, everybody. It's time to get with it and start using products and theories that are more trending and current for us. Okay, so that's where we are here. So now what are we going to do is we're going to set the rest of the lower teeth, and I'm going to carry on with the lower, keeping in with the, again, the model analysis, okay, and the model analysis of where the teeth were sitting within that zone limit, okay, and the blend. So I have those lines drawn on my model, and then I also have my thoughts on the patient of where I want to go with this. So now, what did this do is I set the upper canine, I set the first premolar to the triangle. Then I bring the lower first premolar up, which now sets plane of occlusion. Okay, so now I can follow plane of occlusion all the way back. So setting this tooth first, then the first premolar, following the triangle so it's in the right position. Then I bring the lower up to it, and then that sets my plane of occlusion. So these teeth, when you set plane of occlusion, They can be set on a flat plane. They can be set on a 20-degree curved plane. They can be set on a custom curve of SPE as well. So you have that ability to set on different theories based on what you want from that patient. So you just heard me right. You can set it flat, you can set it curved. Now again, bear with me, because all of those that set the upper teeth first, you'll see this. It'll still work. Okay, I can use an upper flat template. Okay, I can use a curved template. Okay, all right. It doesn't matter. So all right, everything will work for these teeth. Okay, I set a customized curve. So I freehand this and I set it custom. In Europe, and a lot of pictures that you see from Germany, you'll actually see them holding floss or a string, and they actually set their curve this way by using the floss or string. Okay, there's many different ways to do this. You do it the way that you're most comfortable with and the way that you are taught. That's fine. I freehand and I do customized. So what does that mean? Let's take a little pause and let's show you. This is the curvature of the ridge right now of this person. Can you see it? See that curvature? Okay, so what I do is I have a protractor here, okay, and I actually will take and I will outline the shape of the ridge on the border. Just do that again like this of the model. Okay, now this is a printed poly-dye model, so let me just show this a little easier so that you can see it, and I do that. Okay, and now I've outlined the ridge crest on the side of the model here. Okay, so that when I set denture teeth, I'm using this as my curve of SPE and now my curve. Because again, if I set this to a 20-degree template, how do I know that that's 20 degrees? The teeth are set 20. How do I know that's 20? I don't. So I'm actually setting it to this. What's the thought rationale behind that? Because if I have a curvature like this, I want the denture tooth to follow it so that when the patient bites down, it comes down and the force is at a 90-degree angle, so it pushes into the bone structure and into the gum. I want it at a 90. So if I'm setting this at 20, it could be off a little bit. So now it's hitting like this, and that's not pushing. It's going to push it forward. And in German, we say it's going to rutsch. It's going to push. So that's why I do a customized curve for patients to that snapshot of time for them. Okay, instead of doing it and using a template, I'm following the model analysis. Okay, but you can take that in for a minute. Okay, I have learned very humbly and through, again, my journey, I set to the patient, to the patient, to the patient, but now that means also some of the technical aspects. Okay,
Mark?
so yes, Jim.
Yeah, so we have a question that says that isn't now the lower first premolar now too far buccally? Can it be adjusted so that
Yes.
it tucks into the upper accordingly?
Yes, you can. So for demonstration purposes, okay, I'm over exaggerating things a little bit. So yes, you can move it in a little bit. Yes, you can. Now here's the beauty of this, everyone. Okay, let me switch papers. Okay, so what's going to happen here is that lower cusp tip, that lower cusp tip is going to fit into this fossa. Now remember, according to model analysis, I have a little bit of leeway of where I can push things and move things. So yes, I can adjust. The other thing is that fossa, so every fossa that I'm going to use, okay, here's the fossa, imaginatively, and I put the cusp tip in there. I have 1 millimeter of space in every direction. It's not a tight centric. I actually can put that cusp tip in and there's a little bit of wiggle room. Why is that? These teeth are designed with freedom of centric. So that question is very timely because now that follows into this. I want to remind you, you are asking a patient, you are asking a senior citizen to bullseye centric every time they touch. You know, that's impossible, right? They can't. And especially now that they're medicated, they're older. Some you have MS and Parkinson's. They can't follow into that centric because they're shaking. And you are asking a senior citizen now that has degraded neuromuscular activity, muscle toneness to always pinpoint centric. Most denture teeth on the market are locked in and tight in centric. Yes, they work in balance, but in centric, they are tight. VITA teeth, so MFT, Physiodens, and Lingoform are not locked into centric. So here's a little trick. I want you all to touch your teeth together in centric. Let's try that again. So you touch together in centric. A little like this. Now wiggle. Can you wiggle in centric? Very little. I don't want you to go full excursions. No, just in centric. You have a little bit of wiggle room. Most people have about a millimeter and a half. As the teeth wear down, they actually gets a little bit bigger. They are not locked in. That's freedom. You have a little bit of freedom, and freedom is good, everyone. You need that freedom. There's only a handful of denture teeth produced globally that are not locked in centric. VITA is one of those companies. MFT, Lingoform, Physiodens, posterior teeth are not locked into centric. They have that little bit of wiggle because we forgot about the wiggle when we made denture teeth. There's about 5 companies globally that have it, and not all their tooth lines. Because when I just said MFT, Lingoform, and Physiodens, that's newer trending. Their teeth that VITA built the company on, the cuspiform, much like Dent Supply, is all from that 40s and 50s theory. It has not have freedom in centric. They're locked in. There's no freedom. They work in balance, sure they do, but there's no freedom in centric. And what have I realized is that you are asking an elderly person to pinpoint centric every time. They can't do that. It worked great on an articulator. It doesn't work like that here. You need that little bit of wiggle room. We have wiggle room so we don't break cusps off because we can't even, at the ripe old tender age of 51, I can't reproduce centric every time. Depends on what I'm eating, how my head is turned. That's why there's a little bit of tolerance. Yeah, most of us are using denture teeth with no tolerance. And that's where it gets us into trouble. So what I realize now is it's being able to have that freedom in centric, and I can actually take it and make it bigger. So I'll show you how to do that as we move forward. Make it bigger, meaning I can make the fossas bigger, okay? So that I even can increase the wiggle room even more. So yes, I can move that. Yes, you can. Yes, you have that freedom and flexibility to move it. When you set the teeth, you'll see that there's a natural arc here. So you can already see that there's a bow. It's not flat. It's not straight, okay? There's an actual bow, okay? That happens when you set it. And then again, as we look this way, you can actually see, again, I set things relatively, okay? You can set them to a curve. You can set them flat. Or you can set them to the string, okay? Or you can set them customized as well. Now that's because I set the lower first. So now let me show you what happens. So that I've set fairly flat. And now we're going to jump and we're going to go to the upper. And I'm going to set the upper. And in the future, when we're able to meet again and have conferences again, come find me and let's take a course together and we can go through this one-on-one. I'll also provide you my information so that you can contact me privately and I can talk you through this and help you as well. So now we're going to set. Here's the second. Okay, so there we go. Second bicuspid comes in and rests. Now what you're noticing is this looks different than Dentsply because you can start to see that there's spaces and gapping. I want that. Okay? And what's happening is that lingual cusp. So that lingual cusp, bear with me, this cusp here, that lingual cusp is going into the fossa of the lower, which is right there. Okay? And it's resting into that fossa. Okay? Now that's the ideal. Now we're going to set upper molar. Okay, upper molar comes in, same thing. Okay, comes in. All right, now this is where I have a little bit of freedom, some flexibility. Okay, so again, how much is too much? I can come and I can close that off. Can I? Sure I can. Okay, you have to look. It's not locked tight. There's still gapping in there, even though I have the buckle down. Or I can move the buckle up and have more space. What doesn't change is I have this lingual cusp and the secondary. Okay, so the buckle, lingual buckle, and then the distal lingual. Pardon me, let's try that again. The mesiolingual and the distal lingual. Okay, this is the main cutter. This one is a big cusp. You'll see it, it's big. And that goes into the fossa of the lower. Okay, and that rests into this fossa, and the secondary rests right in there. Okay, so that's a mortal and pestle. So the cusp is pushing into the bowl, and then the bowl has the freedom in it so that the cusp can move within the bowl before it comes up the guiding planes of the tooth. Okay, so when I open the articulator and I can now start to move it. So this is a Protar 7. This has the ability to alter side to side. So that's the freedom I've been speaking of. That's freedom and centric. So this articulator can do freedom and centric. So now I can rock this setup in freedom and centric. Okay, so I can check it. And then what's happening is that upper cusp that sits here is rocking within that fossa, within the bowl, and then that's good. And then I can make the bowl bigger. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, say I have a patient that's elderly and say they have a little bit of a, they have a little bit of a shake. Okay, there's a little bit of movement for them and their jaw is pulsing and shaking. Well, now I want to give them more because they're going to have a harder time reproducing centric accurately. So all I have to do is grind the guiding planes of the teeth, of the lower fossas. And so what that looks like, again, switching. So bear with me, I'm going to get this out of the way. Okay, here's the lower. Okay, that's the fossa. So the upper sits in, and that's your freedom. It has a little bit of freedom and centric. So now how do I make that more? Well, you can make that more by grinding the guiding planes so you're increasing it and making it wider. I want to do that for people that have less tolerance, for people that have a harder time reproducing centric, especially on cases where the denture's 10, 15, 20 years old and it's really worn flat. Because you know for sure with flat teeth, they're having to mill it. That's how they're chewing. So their bite cycle is more horizontal, and so they need more room. So now when you make them new teeth, that's where this whole business came from. And they said, well, Mark, how come my new teeth are looser than my old one? Because I locked them in. They were so used to having freedom from their old worn out denture. And then I gave them this denture that the teeth are locked together, and they're trying to reproduce their old bite cycle. Because it's habit, everyone. It's your central nervous system. It has a habit. Every time I go to the grocery store, I know where the peanut butter is. I know what aisle to go to. I know where that sucker is, even though I buy peanut butter every few months maybe. Yet when the grocery store changes the location of the peanut butter, it's crazy. Where'd the peanut butter go? They changed it. But I knew just from getting 6 times peanut butter every year, I know where it is in the grocery store. They change it in location, it buggers up my central nervous system because of the pattern. And so what happens is that's why, again, where you run into trouble, it's locked together. You need it so that it goes and has movement. So what the Freedom Eccentric does is this. It gives us a little bit of wiggle room, gives us some flexibility. It also now bite cycle, so you don't hit and slide into position. The hit and slide is where we break things. That's where we chip things. The hit and slide also manipulates and rocks the denture base. So then I want to watch the guiding planes, okay? The guiding planes are buccal upper, lingual lower. Wait a minute, Mark. But that's what I was taught to have contact on. Yeah, and I'm telling you now, don't have contact on it. It's opposite day. Welcome to Tuesday opposite day. You don't want buccal upper, lingual lower. I don't want contact here because that's where the hit and slide comes. They hit, slide into position. This thing needs to go so that it always lines up. Again, point load, okay? Point load into here, okay? That's the beauty of lingualized occlusion. That's the beauty of linguiform teeth. And that was my hard lesson learning where my bite was right. I did it with how school taught me to do it. And the patient's coming back and complaining and the denture's moving and I push on it and it's firm on the ridge. But oh yeah, Mark, it's moving when I eat. And then I would just shrug my shoulders and go, well, that's a denture. That's as best as we can do. And what did I miss? I missed the fact that they chew in a bite cycle. Okay. And now this, how these teeth operate. And I'll take the pin off the articulator. Okay. So bear with me because this is kind of hard to show on camera versus in person. Now, what are we taught? We're taught to open the articulator and we're taught to do this. And we're taught to check occlusion like this. Yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm going to say that on air and I'm going to say that with a recorded message. Nobody chews like this. Watch yourself chew. Go home tonight and watch your family and your significant others eat. Nobody chews like this. Go watch when we can, your grandparents if possible, and people with dentures eat. Nobody chews like this. Yeah, this is how we're taught to check. I want you now to take your articulator, and you can do this on different articulators. I've used it on clip clops, little articulators, hinge articulators. I want you to start to mimic a chew cycle. So what's the chew cycle? This motion. You chew in a teardrop, okay? And that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about now how these upper cusps are coming in and resting inside this bowl, these fossas. And I'm looking for interference points. And I want you to start to do this. And it takes a little while because you have to get your fingers on it and you got to start to mimic a chew cycle. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to now, how does this person chew in real life? So now I watch them. I get them to talk. I bring gum. Heck, I have cucumber in my office. You cut them a little piece of cucumber and you chew it and you're watching someone eat and you're watching that chew cycle. Remember, the chew cycle is either a teardrop or a variation of it. Some are more horizontal. So what happens is they're going to chew more this way. Kind of think like a cow, because again, they're having to mill it because the teeth are flatter. So then here on this setup, if I know that, and I know that the chew cycle is more horizontal, then I'm watching to see how this cusp, these two lingual cusps, are resting within these fossas and then the guiding planes of it. Okay? So now, I promised you. So I set it up. So remember, the lower I set flat. So I have an exaggerated, the lower I set flat. Now here's the upper on a flat plane. And I appreciate this might be hard to see, but you'd think the upper would be flat. It actually, there's a curve there. So there's actually a built-in curvus B within the teeth themselves. So this allows you to set them flat on a 20-degree curve, on a custom curve, because they have flexibility. And actually, this looks like a dense supply setup, okay, where the lingual cusp is touching the table, especially on the molar, yet the buccal cusps are off the table. That's the beauty of these teeth, man. They're awesome, okay? So you actually can set the lower flat, but the upper has an automatic curve to it. And then that allows you to set things differently. So if you want to set the uppers first, please go right ahead. Set all the uppers first. You just have to watch then when you set the lower, okay? You don't want to put a big curve on them, okay? Because these are more set flat, okay? And they're more flatter. So again, the upper's coming, the lower's coming up. So again, you have a bowl, it's bringing the food up to the upper cusp and it's getting hammered. And the lower's bringing it up. And then you just want to watch the sides of the bowl, okay? So the sides of the bowl, the sides that aren't causing the interference, okay? So we'll quickly set the other side. And then I'm going to show you how to control this. So how to check it. So bear with me. So rule of thumb, the older a patient is, the more medications they are on, the more compromised their health is, the more freedom I'm going to give them, the more flexibility I'm going to give them, the more freedom and centric I'm going to give them, because they need it, because they can't reproduce accurate centric on their own. Okay, so that's your tip. And that's important to know from the dentist. You need that information. And especially now on the cases that you have in your office that are driving you crazy and that are driving you nuts, I want you to go and start asking some questions. Tell me about the patient. What did I miss? Okay. How old are they? Tell me about their health. Tell me about their adaptability. Okay. So look, I'm just going to set the upper. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this on a flat plane. See? So you can just set it on a flat plane like you normally do. It'll work. Okay. Okay. So now I'm setting the other side. And again, yes, you want to pay attention to where you are. So remember the dot, first premolar. So again, the center of that dot, if I peel all this away, that's where my first premolar is. Okay. So why do we have spaces between the teeth? Why is this not totally tight? When it's totally tight and I put food in here and I bite in, the food gets pushed off. You want a little bit of gapping in there so that the food has somewhere to stay to get minced. If it's tight occlusion, much like, again, we see with other products, if it's tight, the food gets pushed off. You want the food to stay on the tooth, so some of it, so that it can stay there and get pulverized and minced. It's more efficient. So if you can set the lowers first. You can set the uppers first. But what you're checking now is that the lowers will be basically flat when you're done if you're setting the uppers first, okay? And even then again, even if I set the lowers on a 20-degree type of plane, the uppers will follow the 20-degree plane as well. And you have that flexibility of how much overbite and overlap, because remember, it's not locked in. So I have a little bit of wiggle room on those teeth. All I have to do then is watch the guiding planes afterwards when I'm done. I have the ability then to move that and increase it or decrease it as seen fit. The spaces are there so the food doesn't get pushed off and that the food can stay on the teeth somewhat to get minced so it's more efficient. So this is a mortal and pestle, whereas the 20-degree teeth are more milling. And the milling is where you have to rub it together, and that causes more dislodgement. Whereas a mortal and pestle works better within the chew cycle of a patient, and it helps crush the food. Because again, for all of you wet-fingered practitioners out there, if I had $1 for every time I had a patient say to me, I can't eat lettuce. And we'd look at them and say, well, it's a denture. What do you expect? And now, since I've been using these for all these years, we don't get that problem anymore because you can eat lettuce because it's mortal and pestle. It crushes the food. It's not going to mill it because, again, the fibers of lettuce, that doesn't break the fiber down when you mill it. It's got to be a crush, come up and crush. And that's why these teeth are awesome, because they crush your food. And then you're working within the chew cycle, and then you're watching the guiding planes so it doesn't hit and slide into position. So you're controlling the guiding planes. Okay?
Mark?
So, yes.
So we have a question. Do the buccal alignments matter when using this technique?
The
that
buccal
makes sense.
alignments.
Yeah, I'm not sure, buccal lingual or rotating.
Okay, so that would be a really good alignment. So again, the buccal teeth are all going to follow on the same path as you come down and see them. So it'll be much like a Dentsply setup, where all of these teeth, all the buccals are going to follow their own line. Okay, so they do have an alignment. To answer your question, you have to appreciate, because of the arcs and angles of the mouth and the chew cycle of that patient, I've actually had to modify things where I have taken it somewhat out of alignment, where one tooth is tipped more buccally than another tooth. That can happen. Depends also on their cheek and their lineal alba, the line that you have on the inside of your cheek. Some people are really pronounced, especially when you come more posterior. And I've actually had to change angulations and arcs of teeth. So generally, on a normal, ideal setup, things will all follow certain lines and curvatures. but you can also take it and adjust it to the patient. So long as the lingual cusp stays in the fossa, that's the main chewing cusp, that's fine. Then the buccal can lift off. Okay, that's doable. So it's a yes and no response. On an ideal setup, of course, everything's going to line up and look pretty, but in reality, this is anything but pretty. It has to function, and it has to function to that chew cycle of that patient. So then I can modify. Okay, so that's what we're doing. That's my answer. Now, quickly, bear with me. So in recent memory, I've had 2 second opinion consults come in, and the patients were both seniors, women, elderly, 75 plus, both with new dentures, and we're having trouble wearing them. And here's the issue, okay? Practitioner did everything right. They did, on a peer review, everything would be fine, okay? Where was the problem? Their old teeth, they were worn down, so their bite cycle was more flatter, and on the new teeth, the bite was locked in, and the practitioner opened the vertical and gave them that 1 to 3 millimeters of freeway space, because they were over closed before. They had, say, 5 to 6 millimeters of freeway. But in both cases, the one patient, this last year, her husband died. She had to learn how to drive and fend for herself. She had to drive herself to the grocery store. Her teeth broke. That's why she needed a new set made. And then too much change for her, too quickly. And again, when you looked at her skin, arthritis, bruising. So you had to, I backed off the vertical. I didn't give her the 1 to 3. I actually gave her 4 millimeters of freeway space, a little bit more like her old teeth, but now sharper, so that, and it was more adaptable to her. And this is why you have to ask yourself, was it too much change for that person? Okay. That's what you have to ask yourself when you're in the weeds.
Mark, one other question. How do you identify where the teardrop cycle of individual patients? How do you identify what type of, whether it's teardrop or more flatter, on those cusps?
Yes. So I'm getting good at now. So what'll activate it? So again, same days of the week and the months of the year will posture the jaw phonetically and cover the phonetics of that language. So you want to get them to speak it in English, and then you want to get them to speak it in their mother language. So what you're going to say is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Now, when I'm talking, you want to watch my jaw. Do I come down? Do I posture? Do I come to favor one side? Think of Jean Chrétien, our ex-prime minister. Think of if there's the jaw posture. And so now, again, days of the week, months of the year. So I get them to speak that for me. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I'm watching the jaw. On certain situations, I will also have the patient, I'll bring some food. So like I said, I will have that patient eat a little bit of cucumber, especially if I'm having a hard time, or if I have an issue. Then we bring a little bit of cucumber to work, and I give them some cucumber. I have them bring it because cucumber is softer, but I'm looking at the chew cycle. Generally, I can catch it on phonetics and watching the patient talk and how their jaw is moving. Then it's a judgment call on age, medication, skin. Okay, that's the secondary call for me, because again, that's going to tell me, and I'm watching them to see if they shake a little bit. And then, as I said, I'm watching their posture and I'm watching their jaw move when they talk. So when I was first trained, I saw shape, color, and position midline. Those are the things that we saw and that we were trained to look for. And now when I'm looking at someone, I'm looking at their jaw and I'm looking to see how it's moving. And I'm looking to see the movement of the jaw through phonetics. And that is very accurate for me to say now, how am I guesstimating their chew cycle? Okay, that's how. So days of the week, months of the year, English and mother language. Okay, because sure as shoot, when they leave your office and they have a mother language, they speak it. So you have to catch them in their mother language, okay?
So one other question on the posterior, Mark.
Yes.
And it was a question of, so setting the teeth within the zone, the triangle that you've created as per
Yes.
Gerber.
Yes.
Are we omitting, or does it omit crossbite with this method?
No, because it'll show it. So again, let me get right to it. Okay. So this is how it looks. Okay, in a typical setup. And then if this was a crossbite setup, what happens is your triangle becomes a lot narrower and thinner. It's almost a line. And then that's what bodes really well for lingualized occlusion and point load, because it's almost so aligned. So now, what have we done? I have showed everyone, and I have showed you. So let me reposition. Okay, we've taken the lingual cusps here, and we've put them into the fossas here. Okay, crossbite. So bear with me. I will show you. So typically on crossbite, we crisscross the teeth. So the top goes on the bottom goes on the top, and you switch right to left side, and then you usually end up grinding them. All we're going to do on crossbite, so if I take the uppers off, so just a moment. Now we're going to pretend, because this is not a crossbite jaw relationship. But now, Jim, we can show our audience what to do in a crossbite. So the lower stays where it is, okay? But now what happens is I put a different cusp into the fossa, okay? So instead of the lingual coming in, now I'm going to put the buccal. So instead of the lingual cusp going into the fossa, now I put the buccal in a crossbite. Okay, and I put the buccal into it. So let me show with the molar, because it's a bigger tooth, so you'll see it easier. So the fossa is the fossa. And now all we're going to do is, instead of the lingual going in, I'm going to put the buccal in. And now the buccal goes into the fossa on a crossbite. Okay. So now all it is now is a switch where the buccal goes in. Okay. And that's the switch on crossbites. Okay. Because all that happened is the jaw relationship changed. So the lower is bigger than the top. The lower will still, if we follow the same principles with the fossa, okay, and everything, it's just now these buccal cusps become the chewing cusps. So those buccal cusps rest into the fossa of the lower, and then you have your crossbite setup. And that's all that changes. So you're just taking the tooth and you're switching it over. The one thing to pay attention to, of course, is because now this isn't a chew cusp anymore. You got to watch, because we might catch some interference here on the guiding plane when we do the chew cycle. And I can set a crossbite setup without basically grinding any teeth anymore.
And Mark,
so, yes.
And for the entire audience, we will be having Mark go over like class 2, class 3 type setups as well later this year. So please, stay in touch too, and we'll inform you of when those are coming up.
And we can do that. Yes. So we can have true crossbite cases, and I can set it up. So you're going to have to forgive me here. but I'm going to have a shameless plug right away. And that's all we do is I just set the buccal. Let me hit autofocus. Okay, so now the buccal cusp comes in and rests into the fossa. That's it. Okay, so my plug here, you guys, is I have some cases posted now. So you can follow me on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And I've got cases on there where I did a side-by-side. So you'll see it posted. Actually, it should go on today. I have a patient now that's been wearing denture for 2 months. It's class 3 prognathic bilateral crossbite. I did one conventional, one digital with Vigo. And he's been wearing both of them now on and off between both of them. I gave him 2 sets. And he came back this last week actually for follow-up. And I've got pictures of it. So again, we did it prognathic class 3 bilateral crossbite. It's one of a kind in the world. And we did it with Vigo, so the digital, and we also did it with conventional. Same thing, just the buccal goes into the fossa. So we had to override the software a little bit and change things around because it was prognathic. So it was a little bit of a challenge with the software, but it worked. And he's actually wearing both sets. And he said he likes the digital version better because it grips his gum better. So these things are I'm posting on social media, okay? So you can check me out there, please. Shameless plug. Okay. Now, as we're slowly running out of time, I want to show this quickly on the other side. Okay. We typically take articulating paper and we check this. Okay. Articulating paper, regardless of its thickness, has a thickness to it, and it can bend between the teeth and give you wrong readings as it hits guiding planes. You stick this in someone's mouth, the first thing that their tongue does is retrude because it touches the paper. And then once you retrude the tongue, you retrude the mandible. So how I want you to check it is this, okay? In the lab, I use Staedtler non-permanent pens, so you can see me use them. And so what I've done is I will actually color this cusp, and then I will go in and check it. And then again, I'm doing a chew cycle of the patient. And then I'm checking to see if this marked anywhere here in the fossa. So again, a little hard to see on camera. In person, it's much easier. And we can go in and we can see if there's any marks or touches on the guiding planes. It's much more accurate and finite than paper. Now, in the mouth, I don't use articulating paper in the mouth anymore. You take a Q-tip and you put some coated in Vaseline. And then you take your articulating paper. And then I rub the Q-tip on the articulating paper, and I'm getting the ink to now coat the Q-tip. And then I dry the denture off, take the denture out of the mouth, dry it off, and then I color the cusps. Whoops, there we go. So then I can color the cusps. I insert the denture back in the mouth, and then I have them talk to me. I don't use the word bite. I just have them talk. What? Days of the week, months of the year. They're going to swallow on their own. They're going to do everything on their own. And then what does that do? That goes and it marks. And then I can find if it was touching on a guiding plane, then I'm able to do it. I get my hands off of them. The other thing that I've learned, get your hands off people. Don't manipulate the data. The minute I touch someone, the minute I move and touch their face or their jaw while they're functioning, the minute I stick paper in their mouth, even if I use forceps and a quadrant paper, the minute it goes in, it changes the jaw, changes the tongue. I don't want to manipulate the data. And so then I have them, I mark it, and then I can have them say days of the week, months of the year. And then between there, they're going to swallow, and I can check center contacts. I can also check guiding plane interferences like this, for example, and then I can adjust it. Especially when people say, well, yeah, the denture's loose after I talk for a while. Boy, that's another big one for us, hey? Yeah, the denture's loose after I talk for a while. Well, what's happening is while they're talking and they're going through their motions, again, through the days of the week and months of the year, and that jaw's posturing, the teeth are contacting and they're hitting. So now that's what's dislodging the denture. So that's when I'll come in and do this type of approach. And then again, if you're chipping anterior teeth, it's because the anterior lowers are knocking against the uppers. So that's when I'll, again, color the lower anteriors and then check and have them speak. And then I'm looking for marks here on the lingual. That's why you're chipping teeth. Because remember, they have no nerve anymore. There used to be a nerve to that tooth. So their central nervous system had a 3D mental picture of where that tooth was. Now the tooth is pulled, the nerve has been cut. Now there's no nerve anymore. Now they're on eating with a denture that they can't feel. They can only feel around. There's no nerve to the denture at all. So how do they tell where the teeth are? It's practice. And now, how do they tell? It's a learned pattern. So when I'm building them a new denture, I'm changing their learned pattern. So again, what do I do for an anterior tooth? Same thing. You want to color your Q-tip, and then you want to dry the denture, come in here, and then you want to get them to talk. Days of the week, months of the year. And then when they talk, their jaw will posture while they speak, and they say days of the week and months of the year, and they'll talk and posture, and then they'll mark, and then I can adjust. And that's how you adjust over an implant. Okay? And then that's, if you're chipping teeth, how you set it on the articulator is not how it's working in their mouth. I'm sorry, but it's on us. So now we gotta change it and get it to that person's cycle. And that's how you do it. Okay? So again, the more you change vertical, the more you change bulk, the more you change that perspective of that patient. And then we have to be careful. So again, my rule of thumb, the more I change, the more freedom I want, the more flexibility I want to counteract what I'm doing so that it fits better. Okay, so that's how you check it in the lab. I'll use a pen, not paper. And in operatory, I check now using this. So I've tried the sprays and stuff, and most of the people that have gone through our Freedom course say that this is working well. Some have used some felt markers and such, but you just got to watch because the non-permeable ones will bleed out in the mouth because they're water soluble. So that's why I like this approach. And then coloring things. And then again, if things are cracking or breaking, that's what I'm checking for. And especially if it's an anterior tooth chip, that's what you're checking for, because again, we didn't capture their bite cycle accurately because of course an articulator can only do so much. So again, what you're going to see is gaps and freedom is good. And you're going to want to see freedom in there. Okay. It's kind of hard to see on the camera. So, and then again, on a crossbite case, all I've done is just taken a different cusp and put it in a different fossa. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't matter because again, the versatility of the teeth, I can take the upper molar, first molar out, I can put a second molar in. It doesn't matter. All it is just changing out the cusp. Sure, it's smaller, yes, but if I have to do it, it's still the same principle. I have a bowl, I'm putting a cusp in the bowl, the hammer into the bowl. Doesn't matter what hammer, it's a hammer in a bowl. So maybe the hammer's bigger, maybe it's smaller. Now I just got to watch for that, because if it's a bigger hammer, I got to watch the bowl, make sure it doesn't hit and slide. The hit and slide is what's been killing us in industry. And that's what's been causing us all the problems and the frustrations and the complaints. It's the hit and slide, because we've been asking patients to bullseye centric. and they're seniors. Yeah, I'm getting a little passionate. But now, again, through that realization, because before I would say to a patient, touch your teeth together. Well, Mark, you idiot. They don't feel their teeth touch together because they have no nerves to their teeth. The teeth are dead. So how do they know their teeth are touching together? Well, what they've learned is the compression of the denture on the gum. So when they bite together in centric, it squishes the gum. And they've learned this much squish means I'm together in centric, and this much squish means I'm chewing. And they've learned to differentiate the pressure difference of the hydraulics on the ridge. So when I ask them to touch together, they're trying to feel that certain amount of pressure that they've learned at that vertical on that fit. And then when I change it, and I change the base, and I change maybe the integrity of the base, like for example, a wax rim, I'm changing the compression, and that's what buggers up the central nervous system. And so now I need to compensate for that, which is why I put in the freedom, again, the freedom in centric, and then how I'm arcing and angling. So again, I will arc and angle. If I have a flatter curve, a flatter bite cycle, you want to tip these cusps up more. Okay, you want to tip them up out of the way because the cycle is flatter. And then I want to watch the inside bowl and the hitting of the hit and slide. So buccal upper, lingual lower. Okay, that's where you want to check it and watch. And that's where I make those adjustments. And that's how you drop your adjustment rate. And that's how you increase patient satisfaction and then adjustments. You guys, I've been lecturing now globally for long enough to learn now that I have practitioners that are having prosthodontists in the U.S. has seen 120 adjustments a month. That's a prosthodontist. 120 adjustments a month, you guys. How much time is that taking out every day? Every day we hold aside adjustment time. And then, or we fit it in our lunch. So now we're not eating properly and we're not taking a break. And now we're having to deal with the pandemic. No kidding, we're stressed out. And so now if you can cut your adjustment rate down and bring it to a manageable level, that's less stress on you and less stress on your staff trying to fit things in. Because you got to think of them too. Now they're trying to fit these adjustments in. And where do we normally put them? You have to come in on my lunch. And then now I'm not eating. Or I'm eating bites and gulps. It's not healthy. And again, you do that for a prolonged period of time. That's why burnout was listed as a disease under the World Health Organization in 2019. So burnout is now classified as a disease. And burnout is, again, a lack of passion, and you've just lost interest in your profession, no matter what it is, because you've been dealing with the same things over the years, and it's just built up, built up, built up. And so now I can control better. And it's fun, whether this is digital or conventional. I follow the principles of putting a hammer in the bowl, watching the hit and slide. Okay. Acrylic glass, I don't have to polish it after because it self-polishes. So it's fantastic. Okay. So I went through a quick setup with you. You can set the teeth flat. You can set them on a curve. You can set them on a customized curve. You can set the uppers first. You can set the lowers first. It doesn't matter. Set how you normally set. What you're looking for is you take that hammer and you stick it in a bowl. So you're looking for the cusp, putting it in the fossa. And then again, you're looking at the patient and you're watching their jaw and you're looking to see how they posture. Because again, if they're posturing out to the left when they talk, then I'm going to make sure I have more clearance out to the left. I can already manage that on the case. All right, Jim, it's 11:49. We have 10 minutes left. Do we have questions?
All right, Mark, great. That was fantastic. We will, for everyone, we will be having Mark again for several other workshops throughout this year. He's got another one scheduled in, I think it's about 4 weeks from now. So you can join us again. Each remote webinar is going to be a different topic. We certainly will cover probably, some different classifications, 2, 3, against a natural dentition as well. Maybe, hone in on a little bit more specific topics and so forth. So please join us for that. We have, I'm going to show you this. And so we do have Mark coming up. And for everyone, we do have this video. It has been recorded. It will be posted on the VITA Learning website through our Instagram, through LinkedIn, our YouTube. So it'll become part of the repertoire of videos and remote webinars that VITA's doing throughout this year. So look forward to joining us and rewatching Mark at your leisure. Is going to be fantastic. On CE, anyone who's asking a question about CE, you'll receive an email after this webinar that will direct you to where you can collect your CE for NBC or Florida or North America, Canadian letters for CE. So that is always part of our program. You can always continue to get help, assistance through us, VITA North America, through our help desk throughout the U.S. and Canada. You're more than welcome to email us. We can always put you in touch with Mark if that's needed. We also have Mark doing private programs that are possible, and we would just work through your local VITA rep to do those as well.
I will come to you.
So now, if anybody does have any questions, go ahead and throw them through. A lot of I love you, Mark. Thank you very much, Mark. Stay safe and warm. Thank you, Mark. So if anybody does have any last-minute questions for this remote webinar, please throw them through. Otherwise, we will be wrapping up soon in a couple minutes. But Mark, I think I think that future, Mark, I think there's a lot of topics that you can certainly throw out there for the market. There's a lot of questions, denturists or technicians or even some dentists that'll probably look forward to learning more about how to deal with case-specific issues that you encounter all the time.
Yes. So again, follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook, whatever your preference is. Go back and take a look at the cases that I've posted already. And then Jim, if you don't mind, if you can just click back to the camera to show my screen. So everybody, you can I've got my business card up here, so you can contact me. Just a minute, show my screen. So that's me. You know what? Send me an email. I'm here to help you guys. This is about supporting our profession and our profession moving forward and our patient care. So you have questions, I'm here to support and help you through my journey as well. Every question I get makes me better. So this is all about caring for patients, not only here in my office, but yours as well. Again, appreciate VITA North America for supporting us, for their efforts and time, and for you for taking time out of your day, everyone, to join me. My goal was to show you a couple little nuances of how the teeth are set, why they're set that way. Remember, it's mortal and pestle, and then just to show how I check it. And again, like anything, you need to digest it, maybe watch the video again, contact me with questions, but it takes a while to change because you have habits to change. I didn't get this way and to where I am now. It was a long road of change, and I'm continually learning and changing as I go. So thank you. And Jim, any other questions?
No, we're good. So I appreciate your time, Mark, and all the great information that you provided everyone across that would have attended this remote webinar. And I think that you did an awesome job trying to explain what the teeth were for, the variances of how to set up. And I think, through using other webinars, other types of topics, we will be able to inform, you'll be able to inform the denturists, technicians, and dentists how to grow in their profession as well, like you had a chance to do yourself. So I greatly appreciate it for everyone at VITA North America. Greatly appreciate your time and your help with this remote webinar.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. So with that, I will say goodbye to everyone. Thank you again for joining us for this VITA Learning remote webinar, and we will see you next time. Take care,
Awesome. Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Stay safe. Thank you.